Hello, I'm Ed Washington, and today we want to talk about barriers to employment. And we all have barriers to employment. Some are more serious than others, but for an example, transportation could be a barrier. Maybe our education level could be a barrier. But then you have other barriers such as a history of felony convictions, substance abuse issues, which causes maybe have caused gaps in our employment. But today we will address those barriers, some of those barriers, and how to get around them or get over them. But the whole point is we don't want these barriers to stop us from at least getting an interview. First of all, they should respond honestly. If they have a conviction, they should check yes. However, if they said, please explain, they want to say at that time that we'll explain during interview. Now, if the application asks, have you had a felony in the last 7 years, and you know your felony is 10 years old, you would put no. That wouldn't apply to you because it said in the last 7 years, and it's been 10 years since your last conviction. It's a lot easier trying to explain something orally during an interview, talking to that person, than them having to read it off of off of the paper. It's always worse just reading something uh, about someone than it is actually speaking to that person. So I would definitely put will discuss during interview or will explain during interview. No. In fact, the resume should contain no negative information at all. Uh, that's we trying to, we telling the employer what we want them to know about us, and we're not out there advertising anything negative about ourselves. The first word I would use, and this be the only time I'll be saying this to you, is to be brief. You don't want to get off into any long narrative. In fact, if you can avoid it, you don't even want to name the particular event, let alone talking about the details of the event. Uh, so you would keep it short. Main purpose being you want to impress upon that employer that you've changed. Main thing we want to try to show to this person that the interviewer that you are worth given, worth of being given an opportunity. You are going to have to convince him that you are worth taking a chance on. I might say 10 years ago, I made a mistake. It was a terrible mistake and error in judgment on my part. And I'm not trying to make light of, what happened, but I've changed. While I was incarcerated, I learned some computer. I learned computer skills. In fact, since I've been out, I've actually got my computer technician's license. We want to give them all the positives, things that we've done. If we made some improvements, I think that would be a good time to let the employer know. But the main thing is what you're trying to impress upon him is that that won't be an issue in the future. That's done behind you. In the last 5 years, I haven't had any legal problems, no problem with law enforcement, and I just believe and feel that if I'm given an opportunity, I hope to do everything in my power to make sure you never regret having hired me. If they didn't just come out and ask you on the application, I mean, why supply that information? No, we're not going to talk about substance abuse on the application. Well, the same rule I think would apply in the sense, again, like I said earlier, we don't want to put anything negative on the resume. And if they didn't ask you specifically about substance abuse, and why should they? Why should they be asking you about substance abuse? So you don't volunteer that information. Now, I understand when addicts and alcoholics get clean, and they've been clean about a year or two, we like to talk about our battle scars and stuff. So when a person has overcome a cocaine addiction or alcoholism, I mean, they're proud of themselves and they want to tell somebody, and it's kind of a natural thing to kind of want to bring that out and let folks know that I have overcome. And but if they don't ask you about substance abuse, again, same thing I said about the application, you wouldn't bring that up. Yeah, we had family issues which have been resolved at this time and won't be a problem going forward. As a potential employee, you're trying to get hired at a job fair. You don't have a whole bunch of time at a job fair anyway, but that's definitely not the time to be talking about nothing negative. That can come later. Right now, you're just trying to impress upon that person that you uh, with an interview. That's the main thing that you're trying to do at a job fair is get it called back for an interview. So you're not going to start out. You want to tell them all the positive stuff now. Later on, because first you want to get them interested in you. At a job fair, no, it's no time to start. I mean, is to be discussing talking to a potential employer about your barriers. Basically, I would say to you that we would use the same rules for at the job fair as far as discussing barriers that we did when we filled out our application and when we wrote out our resume. We didn't talk about any of the negative barriers. So, in closing, We've looked at what we would say on the application. We have looked at what we would say on our resume, and we have also looked at what we would do during what we would say during the actual interview. So there are do's and don'ts in all three areas. And the main thing to focus on when we're talking about the application, being honest and truthful, the question about the felony, we're going to always put will discuss during interview, will explain during interview. We don't ever want to put anything negative in that blank where they say, please explain. We'll discuss during the interview. And on the resume, the important thing to remember is we're trying to tell the employer the good things about us. So we don't put any negatives on the resume. Now, as far as addressing these barriers during the job interview, we're gonna have to be honest. If you have a felony, that is a question that the employer is going to ask you about. You've already put on the application that you would discuss it during the interview. So you're going to discuss it during the interview. He's going to ask. So my thing is to be prepared. Already know what you're going to say when you ask the question. The last thing we want to do is get in the interview and trying to think of what to say. But stay away from the negative when you filling out the application, whether or not you are writing out your resume, if you're at a job fair talking to a recruiter or a potential employer. Accentuate the positive and stay away from the negative. Thank you.